Okay. Good morning or good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. On behalf of the UNAM-UK Center for Mexican Studies and MexSocUK, the Mexican Society of Students in the United Kingdom, it is a pleasure to welcome you to this new session of the Student Seminar Series. My name is Grecia Suarez, Logistics Coordinator at the UNAM UK, and I will be opening today's seminar. On this occasion, Dr. Antonio del Rio, Director of the UNAM UK Center for Mexican Studies, is unable to join us and at the beginning of this session. However, he sends his warmest regards to all of you, and if it's possible, he will join us later during the questions and answer session. We are also very pleased to be joined by Farid Bustos, President of the MexSocUK, who we will help us present and moderate today's seminar. Farid, thank you very much. The floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Grecia. Thank you very much for this introduction. And good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Farid Bustos, and today we are joined by Violeta Galeana. She has trained as a medical doctor at UNAM Iztacala, and later she completed a postgraduate certification in occupational health while working in the private healthcare sector. She also has completed a specialty in family medicine at UAM. In 2018, she moved to the UK. Here, she completed an MSc in public health with a focus on mental health at King's College London. She has broad experience in the medical field across different professional environments, including healthcare, medical writing, and editing. And today, she will present us the webinar titled From Mexico to the UK, an Autoethnography of the Influence of Migratory Mourning in Acculturation. Before we begin, just quick reminders. This session is about 1 hour. We will have 45 minutes for the presentation and then 15 minutes for follow-up questions. If you're joining us via YouTube, you can leave your questions in the chat and then we will address them during the Q&A session. And nothing more to add. Violeta, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Farid. Well, first of all, thank you very much for joining. It's an honor to be here. Thank you, UNAM UK. And good morning and good afternoon to everybody. So we are going to start, first of all, with the title. It's From Mexico to the UK, an Autoethnography of the Influence of Migratory Mourning in Acculturation. For starting with our topic, first of all, I want to talk about 3 different key concepts for understanding the research. The first one is autoethnography. Sorry, I'm having problems. Yeah, okay, with the slides. Autoethnography. Okay, first of all, autoethnography is part of the qualitative methodology. Usually in research, we have quantitative methodology, qualitative methodology, and mixed methods. So autoethnography is part of the qualitative methodology. This one is made for focusing in features related to the culture from the perspective of the own researcher. So this is related to knowing an experience about something related to culture from the perspective of the own research. So it is a narrative constructed by personal documents reflecting on critical events and, of course, doing self-observing and self-analyzing. So the second concept is migratory mourning. First of all, we are going to start with which is mourning. Mourning is when a person loses something really special for them. It is related to the 5 stages of mourning. It was developed for Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. And these are the denial, the anger, the bargaining, the depression, and acceptance. Usually during the denial, it's when the person feels like saying, no, this is not happening to me. Anger, when they are very angry about it. Bargaining, like trying to bargain or negotiating with life. Depression, when they are starting feeling like they are very sad. And acceptance, that is when they can taking something from that loss and making part of their own history. So migratory mourning is a mourning of separation from the origin country. It can be even if the migration was voluntary or involuntary, and it can be recurrent and partial. Why this is? Because a person can have the person can have the option of having contact with the origin country, or even they can return to the country. So, for example, every time that they come back to home and they come back to the host country, they can feel that mourning again. Every time that you come and go, you can feel those feelings again, mainly the sadness. So the problem is that this concept is not always studied like migratory mourning. Usually you are going to find literature about migration grief, migration mourning, or cultural bereavement. One that is like the most difficult way of passing for this is the Ulysses syndrome. The Ulysses syndrome is when the person can't deal with that mourning, which is very difficult, and it is related with Ulysses or Odysseus from the Odyssey. If you remember, we are going to have a movie about it this year. So this name is because Ulysses had to go from Trojan War to Ithaca with his family. So he had to pass for different proofs, and it was very difficult for him. That's why the name of this mourning is Ulysses syndrome. So migratory mourning usually is related to very different things in the life of a person, and there are different frameworks that can be used to studying it. But in this case, for this research, I decided to use the framework of Atxotegui or Atxotegui, and it is differentiated in 7 different ways of migratory mourning. The first one is the family and friends. Is when the people or in the origin country can be in contact with the person in the host country. Or for example, when you are missing your people, the language, even that, for example, you can say, oh, it's amazing to learn a new language. Yes, but it's difficult sometimes when you don't have the vocabulary to say, how are you feeling? And that's difficult because it's like you are not being able to communicate part of your identity. The other one is the culture. The culture is related to the values of the person, the food customs, the dressing style, the religion. So, for example, something maybe that it would be basic, but for example, here in the UK, usually the lunch is at 12 p.m. and in Mexico it's at 2 p.m. And maybe it can be like, oh, it's just something easy, but no, when you have more time, you have to add that routine to your life, and of course it's difficult sometimes to add that kind of schedules. The other one is the homeland. It is related more with the landscapes, the sunlight, the temperature. It is more common in migrants that come from places with more sunlight to places that are darker or colder. The social status is related when, for example, you have to look for opportunities in the host country, talking, for example, about work or studying. Also, for example, if someone tells you in your country you need a car, but in your host country you don't need a car because the transportation is very good. And maybe they can tell you, oh, if you don't have a car, then it means that you are poor. And of course, that's not true. It depends on your own feeling, on your own feel. Sorry, where are you based? So, but it can make that the person feels sad, maybe, because it's like, oh, it's true. In the past, I used to have a car, and now I don't have it. Another one is the belonging. It is related to, for example, when you have a community in your origin country, and when you arrive to a host country, you really don't have a community, or you have to look for it. And it is not always easy. For example, in my case, I don't live exactly in London, so it has been difficult to connect with people that are from Mexico. And another one, the physical risks. This one is related about when the person is afraid of having maybe an injury at home, at the work, and they don't know if they are going to be able to look for help, or they don't know how to look for healthcare. Okay, so it is important to know, to reflect in these 7 forms of mourning, because they are not always presented, or they are not presented in the same way for everybody. And it is important to always take in mind that it depends on the culture of the person and the personal circumstances of the migrants. Of course, it is not going to be the same for everybody, because not everybody is going to have the same circumstances, but it is important to validate the feelings. So that's why I wanted to add this. I have a voice, and it is important that we don't deny what we are feeling. So in this, I would like that you can, if you are a migrant, you can write in the comments which one do you think that you have more about these 7 kinds of migratory mourning. And if you are not a migrant, maybe if you have a friend or a family member that is a migrant, which one do you think that is the most difficult for them? Now we are going to go with our 3 key concept, that is acculturation. Acculturation is when individuals from different cultures enter in continuous contact with another culture. It is not like, for example, when you go on vacation and you are like, oh, I'm almost like in the country, I can do my life here. No, 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 no. It's when you have to do that continuous contact even for more than 2 months. So everything is in that context, and it's different as when you just visit and then you go to your house or to your home country. The stressors during the process of acculturation are, for example, how to learn a new language, how to find accommodation, how to have safety living conditions, to get a job or to get opportunities to have a better life, or to maintain contact with the origin country, because it is not always easy. For example, between Mexico and the UK, we have 6 or 7 hours of difference depending on the time of the year. So it can be difficult to have that communication. And the other concept that is related to acculturation is cultural shock. It's basically when you say, okay, I don't belong here. And sorry, and it can be really difficult for the person to know if if they can be able to adapt to their new reality or not. So we have the 3 concepts: autoethnography, migratory mourning, and acculturation. Now, for doing this research, I had to use a checklist that helped me to give my research scientific rigor. So in this case, I used the consolidated criteria for reporting qualitative studies. Correct. It has 32 items in which I have to develop different things. For example, in the first one, it's about the research and how the researcher about the characteristics of the researcher and why the study could be important. The second one is about the study design. For example, understanding about the data, which framework are you going to use, the participant selection, and the third one is the analysis and findings, knowing how are you going to present your findings and that your data is consistent. So the background for the research was that immigration involves an adjustment to different sociocultural contexts that can affect the well-being and health of the person. The process of migration impacts three different things: the immigrant community, the community in the host country, and the health policies and healthcare systems. The vulnerabilities that a person might suffer in migration that have been linked with mental health issues are post-traumatic stress disorder, feelings of loneliness, a risk of developing psychosis, and an increased risk of developing schizophrenia in related disorders in second-generation migrants. The aim of this study was that, first of all, as part of the justification, usually migratory mourning and acculturation can be mixed or converge between them, but usually they are explored separately. And I wanted to understand how one can influence the other one. So I think that it is relevant for public health because migration is part of the determinants of health. Migration is part of the social determinants of health. So knowing how the migratory mourning influence acculturation led us to know how these both can affect the mental health in the migrants during the acculturation. And this study, the objective was to explore how migratory mourning influences acculturation in me as a Mexican immigrant in the UK. For the methodology, I first of all did, here you can see, it was a list of the critical events in my life from 2018, that was when I arrived to the UK, to 2023, which is when I decided to finish the study. And the methodology was that I wrote my autoethnography, first of all, doing my list of critical things happening to me. And after that, doing questions. How has it been to live far from family and friends? How has it been to use another language? How has the change in your daily life been? How have you felt about the different weather conditions between Mexico and the UK? How has the change in your social status been? Do you feel a sense of belonging in the UK? Do you feel that you can have access to healthcare in the UK? So with all of these elements, I wrote my autoethnography. After that, I looked for a methodology that led me to analyze the content of that autoethnography. In this case, I looked for a framework that is named the assimilation of problematic experiences. But in this case, this scale is applied to immigrants mourning their native culture. This framework has 8 stages. Stage 1 is when there is a disassociation or denial about the process that the person is having. Stage 1 is when the person starts having this feeling that something is making them sad, but they really don't know. Stage 2 is when they start having an idea of what's going on. Stage 3 is when there is a clarification. Stage 4 is when there is an insight. It's like when you understand that you are missing your origin culture, but at the same time, it can be a good moment to build a bridge with your new reality. The stage 5, it's the application or working through, when it is when you can use elements of your culture in your reality. But it's only the beginning. The stage 6 is when you use this culture that you have from before to start having your reality in your country. And stage 7 is when you can connect both cultures. So this can help you to have like a transcendent identity. Now your identity is constructed by both cultures. So they are not like fighting, there's no fighting between them inside of you. I wanted to add the photo of the monarch butterfly because these creators are amazing immigrants. They go from Canada to Mexico every year, and sometimes they can visit us in the United Kingdom. So I think that they are a creature that can help us understand how we as migrant we are very resilient. So now I'm going to present my findings. For my findings, what I did, if you see, I decided to go with the framework in one way, and in the other one there are citations. Sorry. So, for example, in my findings in the language, in the stage 0, disassociation, I felt in Mexico that my English was not so bad. But then in active avoidance, when I passed migration control for the first time, it was very difficult for me to understand the accent. So after that situation, I was so scared. Um, in the stage 2, vague awareness, after that experience, I did not want to try to speak English outside my home because I felt like I couldn't understand anything because of the accents. Stage 3, the clarification. One specific thing that was very difficult for me was to see how people could understand me better than I could understand them. And I felt like I was in a huge disadvantage, and I was so afraid about it. In stage 4, the insight, at the beginning, I started watching series or movies in English, but even if I already have watched them in Spanish, it was horrible because I couldn't concentrate. I felt so tired. It was very difficult, but I keep going. So in stage 5, working through, with time I did improve. Additionally, I took small courses with different free language apps, and of course listening to music and trying to have like more speaking with people, but it was very slow. It was not easy, it was not fast. And six, the problem solution, and 7, the use of both languages. I did a collaboration as a voice actress for a Spanish learning course. But it was funny because all the process was in English, and then all the recording was in Spanish. So I could use the both languages, and it was amazing for me. It was like a graduation in my English. The second one, the culture, this association and the active avoidance. I started cooking more to try to keep my mind busy. The second one, the vague awareness, I started having these feelings of how my life had changed in many different kinds. Um, the stage 3, the clarification. For me, the food was very different. So sometimes I felt like it was very expensive and it is not always delicious, like in my country. The stage 4, the insight. For example, in the UK, people are very respectful, but it is not always easy to start conversations with them. So it was difficult to make close friends or to have the feeling of making real connections. In stage 5, working through, the thing is that since September 2018, we were able to celebrate important days for us, like Independence Day or Day of the Dead, with food that is traditional in these special days in Mexico. Also, we could talk with some friends about our traditions in Mexico. I said in these parts we, because I'm referring to my husband, because we have been together here in the UK and we have been our mainly support to each other. Um, Stages 6, problem solution, and 7, transcendent identity. I have taught some friends from the UK how to cook specific Mexican dishes that are part of the Independence Day and Day of the Dead. And not only in the UK now, but for the moment of this framework, yes. So I wanted to add these photos. Here you can see the traditional Mexican dishes made at home in the UK. In this part, in this photo, it's very little, but you can see a kettle, which is used in the UK for boiling water, near to my blender with guajillo chili that we were using for cooking our Mexican food. So basically, I know it's very little, but for me, this is part of my culture. You know, I have my kettle for boiling water and I have my blender with guajillo chili. The second one is the Mexican Independence Day celebration in the UK. Here at home, we usually cook traditional food. In this case, for example, pambazos and our tequila. And for the Day of the Dead, here is our shrine made at home, of course, with the different elements that we usually use in our shrines that we bought them in Mexico and they came with us during travelings. And now about the findings of belonging. The stage 0 and stage 1, my grandmother was a very huge support for me at the beginning. And I used to do a lot of video calls with her and send her a lot of photos about the different places that I visited in the stage 2. I came back to the UK after doing documentation about visas and things. And she died 2 days after I arrived to the UK again. And I did not have money to come back to Mexico for the funeral. So I had to do all the mourning here. And it was a moment in which I could understand that everything had changed. The things were not going to be the same. The stage 3, clarification, I started missing the part of interacting with other people in real time. In the stage 4, the insight, at the beginning, living in the UK, it was difficult to feel a sense of belonging, but with time, I have developed it. In stage 5, for me, enrolling at King's College London was very important because I had the opportunity to start having like more connections with people and to do different activities that helped me to develop different skills. And stages 6, problem solution, and 7, transcendent identity. My main support here is my husband. Together we have created a good support for each other, and we have been able to have new friends not only in the UK but also in other parts of the world. So to everybody that has been so nice with us, thank you very much. You know who you are. Findings about Homeland. I would like to point that Homeland was about the migratory mournings was the one that was not so difficult for me because I always wanted to visit like different landscapes and, you know, always have like this curiosity during growing up in Mexico. So stage 0, the disassociation, and 1, active avoidance. When people from other countries went to Mexico and I usually talked with them, they told me that there was a lot of sunlight in Mexico and I really didn't understand why they say that. So then, by awareness, when I arrived to the UK, I started understanding the weather in the UK is colder than in Mexico, and usually the sunlight is not always so cool or so good as in Mexico. Stage 3 and stage 4, even after 5 years of living in the UK, in the time of the research, it is strange to have to live without sunlight after 4 p.m. in the winter or to have much sunlight at night during the summer. The landscapes are completely different too. In stage 5, the working through, I have learned to use different layers of clothes depending on the season. And stages 6 and 7, I feel happy for having the opportunity of seeing such different places because it was something that I always wanted to live, and for many years I thought that I would not be able of doing it. And we have the other 3. I decided to make them like very little because these one were like in the middle of the others. So for example, for family and friends, my beloved ones, which have accepted to have a relationship by phone calls and texts. They are the people that stayed in my life. Some of them have visited me or I have visited them, and it has been fantastic. In many times, their messages of love and their video calls have been one of my main motivations of continuing my pathway. In the social status, for example, my autoethnography, we do not know if we'll be able to stay in the UK or not. Therefore, we need to take care of money and not to spend it without restrictions. I can say that my husband and I have learned to make savings more intensely than in Mexico. However, we know that it is a process and we have been buying things very slowly. And physical risks. Sometimes I was scared or anxious about not being able to communicate accurately if I was sick. For example, this one, it was during the pandemic. We went to our healthcare center near at home and we could have our vaccinations for COVID-19 and we didn't have a problem. Everything was very good, very efficient. And for now, the health services have been very accessible to us. So as you can see, in these ones were not so difficult for me. The main results of the study is that not all the forms of migratory mourning had the same impact in acculturation. When the language skills improved, the mourning of language, culture, and belonging started to decrease. And of course, it made me to feel more acculturated in this country. Now, the discussion. Previous investigations have suggested that there is an association between grief reactions and a poor level of acculturation. So as you can see, yeah, my results were aligned with this previous research because the negative feelings generated by my mourning of language slowed down my acculturation. And of course, if you see, it was like there was a lot of isolation during some time. There has been another investigations regarding how the creation of a sense of belonging in the host country might mitigate the cultural bereavement. In my results, when I could improve my language skills, it was the same. The sense of belonging increased and diminished not only the mourning for belonging, but also the mourning for the culture, because I was able to connect my culture with my new country, with people in my new country. So, of course, like every research, this has a lot of limitations. As an autoethnography, this study is limited to the experiences and personal conditions of the subject, in this case, me. As such, this study cannot explore all the effects and relationships of migratory mourning over acculturation. The study cannot be generalizable. However, like many of the qualitative investigation, it can be transferable to other similar cases. And that's why it is important, because maybe you are not going to have all the same paths for everybody, and you are not going to have all the same mornings, but it is important to know that they exist and how they can affect persons in a similar way. In the data collection, the open questions were elaborated by me, so this might not have enough validity. However, I did a lot of literature review of migratory mourning for being able to create them, and I used the framework of Atxotegui. The data collected did not entirely fit into the assimilation problematic experiences scale applied to immigrants mourning their native culture, so it is another limitation. The framework maybe could be used in another way, or another framework could be better for this analysis. And in conclusion, the improvement of the language skills had a positive effect in the different forms of migratory mourning and in my mental health, of course. Future investigation is required about the suggestions of a link between each of the forms of mourning. And also, it is important to point out to look for the efficiency of the public resources and organizations created to support migrants. Because if you see, almost all the process of acculturation was without support from resources. We really didn't know how to look for them. So it took a lot of time, mainly because sometimes when you don't know if you are going to stay in a country, you don't know where you can get information or what can you do. So that's why I think it's really important that the public resources and organizations are have make like more investigation and be more advertised for people when they are changing their country of living. So thank you very much for everybody that has been supporting us, and that would be the end of my presentation. Thank you. This you can see all the references. There is not something that I decided to invent or something. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Violeta, for this very thoughtful and insightful presentation. It's quite interesting, all the things we go through as immigrants in a new country, and sometimes we don't even realize that because we're so into ourselves doing whatever we're trying to do. But it is very, very interesting. We will move on to the
Okay.
Q&A session. Please, anyone in YouTube, feel free to write them in the chat. We will be happy to share them with our speaker. First of all, I just wanted to say that the type of mourning I have, it's kind of cultural because here, as you said, the British or the Europeans overall, they're a bit more cold. They're colder than the Mexicans or Latin Americans, and the food is the food. I miss it that much. And we've got a YouTube question. Based on your experience, what advice would you give to Mexican students or professionals who are beginning their migration journey in the UK?
First of all, I would say don't give up. It takes a lot of time, but if you are brave enough to keep going, you are going to have something good for your joy, for your travel about this process. But it's about don't giving up. And of course, I think that maybe looking for information for migrants and also looking for a community, maybe not exactly from your country, but with a similar culture. For example, in our cases, as Latin American, I think that maybe looking for another people from Latin America can be helpful. And also, I would say, not thinking that all the people here is the same, because sometimes you can surprise yourself. There's people that is like, oh, I love cooking, so you can connect with them, and for example, you can have new friends by cooking, or maybe looking for hobbies that can help you to connect with people. Basically, yeah.
And there's another one from YouTube. Why do you think sometimes we don't realize we're mourning until later? This person realized until she went to therapy at uni 6 months after moving because had a feeling of depression out of quote unquote nowhere.
I think that we don't realize because, first of all, because not everybody knows that it exists. So we think that if we have a big opportunity to go to another country, everything is going to be happy. And I think that sometimes we have like this uh, pressure from others that you have to be happy for that opportunity, and it's so much like a you have to be positive and everything has to be amazing, and that's not true. If someone is telling you that everything is perfect, that's not true. It is a difficult process because you are, even if, for example, even if you are changing from city in your own country, it's difficult. So imagine now going to another country, and for example, in this case, when you are in a continent and then going to another continent. So my biggest advice is like validate your emotions. Always try to validate your emotions, because I think that sometimes when you see in social media right now is like everybody wants like the validation of others, but they are not validating themselves, and you have to start validating yourself, because even if everybody is giving you like and all of that, if you are not giving that validation, you are going always like feeling starving for the validation of others. So validate your feelings. It is very important to validate your feelings.
Thank you. This is kind of a question I've got. From your experience, which form of this migratory mourning was the most difficult to recognize at the beginning of your migration process?
Mm, at the beginning, I would say that all of them, because I didn't know that it exists. I learned about the migratory mourning because during my master's I had to look for my research, and I saw that the migrants can have the psychosis more, that we can have like more at risk of having it. So when I started learning about them, it was like, oh wow, maybe I didn't have to isolate myself during all of that time at the beginning. So maybe I would say that language. Definitely. The morning of language was the most determinant for me, and it was the most difficult, like accepting that even if for example, in my case, I had been studying English during all my life, but it was more the grammatical forms and all of that. So when I arrived here, it was like, I know this, but then you arrived and no, it's not the same. So I would say the language. For me, the biggest impact was the language, definitely.
Okay, that's quite interesting. Yeah, yeah, no, I think that happened to me too. In Mexico, I was just learning the
Yeah,
grammar, the theory of English rather than practicing it
exactly.
properly. Another question from YouTube. What role could family, friendships, and support networks play in your process of adaptation? Or in other words, from a long distance, your networks can support you in this process, and in what ways?
Uh, they had a huge role because a lot of them were like, "Don't give up! You can do it! You are amazing!" Of course, you are not going to have the good comments always, and sometimes the bad comments comes from very close friends and family, and I think that in this process, you learn that not everybody is going to be with you all your life, and it's okay. Um, and it's important to listen to the voices that are supporting you. I think their role is very important. So if you have a friend or a relative that is a migrant, please, they need that you validate. They need that you are there cheering up for them. Definitely.
Uh, there's another YouTube question. Uh,
Yes.
do you think there might be a link between people that can acculturate and return back to their country?
Mm, I think that you can blame yourself for not doing it. I think it's life. So maybe for 1 year, for some years, it is okay for you, and then you decide that it's not for you anymore, and it's okay. In my case, for example, I decided, because I never had a passport before coming to the UK. It was my first time leaving Mexico, and I decided to make the documentation for 10 years, because I was decided before leaving Mexico that I was going to pass the 10 years of the passport traveling or doing something outside. It was my decision before passing all the process. But staying here, when I arrived, when I started feeling the reality, the new reality, yeah, I think that sometimes it was like, maybe if I can't feel part of this country, it is okay to come back to your country. It is not that you fail or something. It is more about, for example, when you live in a city and then you go to another city and you decided to return to your first city. It's the same, but in countries, of course. And I know it's the impact is different, but in a certain part is that it's not a failure. You can go and then decided this was for me for 5 years maybe, and after that I can't do it anymore, and it's okay.
Okay, that's yep. Yeah, well, we need to start thinking a little bit more of it's fine if we go back to our home country or hometown rather than we didn't make the cut for it. Yeah, that's a lot of
Yeah.
work we need to do. Another huge question. Maybe you talked about it, but do you think we ever finish mourning? And what is the only way to fully, quote unquote, integrate to a new culture? I would like to know your thoughts.
I think that's why the mourning is recurrent and partial, because, for example, for us as Mexicans, our country is there, and we usually want to come and go, and I think that it is not something that ends. You can feel, you can have this sadness very inside of yourself, and sometimes maybe you go and you feel happy and that's all. So I think that it is not something that ends. I think that it depends on how you can manage those feelings. And I think that when you fully integrate to a new culture, I think you never integrate a new culture like completely, because you are going to have an identity that is different. You are not going to be completely from one culture or from another. You are going to have both. So maybe people like have been experiences like you, for example, people from Mexico in the UK, maybe that community can have more integration in in the culture that you are having. But usually, of course, you are not going to be completely British or completely Mexican. No, 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 no. You are going to have both of them integrated. So I think that, yeah, you are not going to be like completely 100% like the people living in one country.
Yeah, we'll just be some sort of amalgamation at
Yeah,
the end.
yeah.
And I got I got another question myself. So you've got a medical and public health background. Uh, do you think this influenced in any way how you analyze your own migration experience, or what this was this? It's obviously important, but how impactful was this in your analysis?
it it was difficult to look for something that was emotional for me, because in Mexico, almost all the research is about quantitative numbers. And when I was here, when I saw the opportunity to explore something that was more about qualitative research, it was amazing. But it required a lot of effort and a lot of being brave to really try to look for my own emotions, because I was like, oh my God, this really exists. And usually people, when we are far away from home, for example, I looking for people and asking them about opportunities, everybody is like, everything is so easy, oh, I'm so happy, and that's not the truth. So it was difficult to find the frameworks to make those emotions to be able to be part of a investigation, and not feeling, because of my background, not feeling that it was not valid to do it. Okay, so that's why for me it was very important to have the perfect checklist, the different frameworks, because it's not something that I didn't want that it was perceived as my feelings, only my feelings, or oh, I'm so sad or I'm so happy. No, no, no. I wanted that this can have a context for people that want to analyze this kind of process.
Yeah, I don't think I can relate with that because I'm part of the science and engineering side of research. So for me, it's quite simple as I just have numbers and it's here you go.
Yeah.
But it's I think it's a great research topic. I think a lot of us learned a lot from your presentation, and maybe some people are even wondering if they're mourning still or if they are mourning at all. And I just got a final question. Sorry,
It's fine.
you told us that one of your biggest barriers was language. Sorry, mourning. It kind of made you feel like you didn't want to talk outside of your household and whatnot. But how, in what other ways did this affect your mental health or your lifestyle overall?
For maybe for the first 2 years, I was really scared of trying to connect with people. Not even at, in social media, you know, and because at the same time you have that pressure, like everything has to be amazing, and that's not true. I really want to make that clear, because I think that we are in a moment in life when everything is yes or no, or there's like no the middle point. And I would like that people think about the middle point of the things. And language for me, I was in an isolation, and of course it was really difficult. And I think that the key for me was never stopped trying to learn, but I knew that it was by myself. So yeah, it was really difficult at the beginning. I can say that even now it's amazing, and no. It is still difficult, but of course it's not the same. And in my mental health, I would say that sometimes I didn't know if it was correct to ask for help, because I was like, no, but I think that I used to think that I was good in this, and now I really don't know, but I can prepare myself. So that part, I isolated in some ways from other people. But the correct people were always there. That's the funny thing. The people that is going to stay with you, they are always with you, and they cheer up you.
Yeah, no, yeah. Always the people that matter are going to be there.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what. Well, I'm being conscious of time. I want to thank you again for this very interesting and insightful presentation. Thank you so much for sharing your work with us and your experience with us today. I also want to thank all the YouTube audience that watch this. This, at least on a personal point, this is very insightful and allowed us to reflect on migration not only as a geographical movement, but also the emotional and cultural toll that it takes on us. Um, Thank you very much, Violeta. We would also like to thank everyone who joined the YouTube live stream. We hope you find this seminar insightful as much as I did, also meaningful, and we invite you to stay tuned with the UNAM-UK Mexican Center for Mexican Studies and MexSocUK seminars. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and thank you so much, and goodbye.
Thank you.